Welcome back to the discussion. Remember, you can join the conversation at hashtag United for Justice or go to the website unitedforjustice.com. And of course, we would love to hear your voice. That's what today is all about. It's a day of discussion. And a discussion, a real productive conversation, isn't just one-sided. So please let your voice be heard at hashtag United for Justice. Now, who am I? My name is Jubal Fresh. If you don't know who I am, nice to meet you. I'm a nationally syndicated radio host, a nationally touring stand-up comedian, and a writer. Most importantly, I'm a human. And when I say I'm a human, I mean that I've approached my job and my career in a way that some people don't. Because situations like this are hard. And it's tough for people to have these real human conversations, especially in the broadcast world. And that's not to say that there aren't a lot of great people who are willing to go out and take a risk and talk about these things and have real discussions. But I think there is a human side that can be missing sometimes when you do the job that we do. And shout out to everybody who has joined in on the discussion today, on your side and on our side. Because it is hard to have these difficult conversations, especially with issues like we're talking about today. You know, a big part of the broadcast community likes to just focus on the positive because they listen to research and they hear that people only want to hear lighthearted, fun news stories and the positive things that are going on, even in a difficult situation like this. I've looked at a lot of radio prep services, which if you don't know what that is, that's where they give you things to talk about on your show. And instead of just highlighting some of the truths that are out there, they find the positive news stories and they just go, here's positive things going on. And the positive is great. I'm not saying the positive is bad, but I'm saying in order for a conversation to actually cause change, you also sometimes have to look and hear the ugly truth in order to find a beautiful end. Because no change comes from just sitting back and being comfortable. No change comes from pretending like things are fine. This is a moment, an important moment in society, and I was going to say in American history, and that's true, but also in human history. This is a moment where it's time for people to be uncomfortable. This is a moment where it's time for people to feel a little uneasy listening to some of the things that have been going on for hundreds of years in our country and across the globe and throughout time. The ugly truths of humanity have hit us hard right now. And in my opinion, now is the time that we don't shy away from that. Now is the time that we sit back and we evaluate and we reevaluate what we're doing in order to bring real change to our society and to our community. Nothing happens from being comfortable, so get uncomfortable with me for a little while. Because at the end of it, we might all come out on the other side better. And if you feel yourself getting defensive or angry at something I say, good. Good. And I would challenge you. I would challenge you to, instead of just being angry and instead of just maybe disagreeing, because if you do disagree, that's fine. There's a way to disagree and still come to a positive resolution. But if you do feel yourself becoming very uncomfortable and very angry with something that I say, I challenge you to not look at me and not look just at the surface level issue that we're talking about. I challenge you to look at yourself and ask yourself the question, why Why is what he's saying or what we're talking about today making me so upset? Are you upset because the topic of the day and the topic of discussion today is upsetting? Great. You should be upset. Are you upset because you're feeling attacked? That's probably not great. Because I'm going to talk about it in a little while. If you're upset because for some reason something any of us talk about in today's broadcast makes you feel attacked, that's when people stop listening. And that's what today is about. Today is just about people listening, people talking, people hearing each side of an argument, and people understanding that we need to do better. Obviously, there has been a problem in this country for a long time. Really, since it started. But if we're speaking specifically about police brutality and police profiling and the reasons that everybody's protesting today, it's been going on for longer than most people can imagine. Unless you've dealt with it closely, and unless it's happened to you, and unless you've heard stories, and unless you know people, then you may not have thought about it until the invention of cell phones. I think it was Will Smith who had a quote recently where he said, this has been going on, I'm paraphrasing, but this has been going on for years. The only difference is now it's being recorded. And that's the truth. And a lot of people, might want to discredit me and my opinion, saying, what could I possibly know? Right? I'm sitting here speaking into a microphone, getting very preachy, by the way, getting very preachy. I realize that. But you know what? Sometimes it's okay to preach. Sitting here sounding like I'm on some kind of high horse that I know better than you. I don't know better than anybody. I'm not trying to be better than anybody. I'm not trying to say that I have the solution for everything, but I do understand the issues of profiling by the police that have gone on in our country for way too long now. I'm going to share with you 3 stories from my personal life. 3 things that have happened to me that were vile and disgusting. And then when I think about them, honestly, I want to cry. Because every time I've told these stories or talk about these stories, it reminds me of the pain that I felt. The pain that I felt for my friends, for people that I considered family, and for just seeing the disgusting side of humanity. 3 times in my life, I've dealt with police profiling. And if you don't know, real quick, I'll explain. If you don't know, because you're hearing this on the radio, if you don't know what I look like, I'm a Caucasian dude. I'm a white dude. And so when I say that, sometimes people are like, what are you talking about? You can't actually know. And I do understand this because of these 3 instances. The first one would have been when I was 15 and I had just gotten my license. I grew up in LA most of my life, but I was living in Hawaii at the time. And in Hawaii, you can get your license at 15, which is a terrible decision, by the way. Don't ever, if you live in a state where you can let your kids drive at 15, don't do it. Don't do it. It's a terrible idea. But anyway, me and 2 of my friends were out after curfew. There's a curfew for teenagers there. Now I'm white. One of my friends was a black dude. One of my friends was Hawaiian. And we were driving, and I took a corner, and I saw a cop car, and I got nervous because we shouldn't have been out after curfew. And I hit a curb, and then we kept going. Didn't think that they noticed. But then they pulled us over. Now, maybe they were justified for pulling us over because I hit a curb. But what happened after that was disgusting. So they kept us there for a little while. And they were, verbally abusive. They were asserting their power in ways that they shouldn't. At one point, they reached into the back seat and grabbed my friend Jance, who was Hawaiian. They grab him, they pull him over to the driver's side of the car, and they beat him over the head with one of their mag lights. 15-year-olds. 15-year-olds just kind of cruising along. Not really up to no good. They messed with me? No, they didn't. But they messed with him, and they beat him over the head with a mag light when they didn't need to. We were just trying to get out of there. We weren't even giving them lip. We were doing none of that. So we get their badge numbers, which, by the way, if you've never been in a situation where you realize, I need to get their badge number, congratulations. And that's what we're talking about today. I didn't think that at the time, but my friends, both of them, knew that they needed to get the badge number. We go back to my friend's house, Gary. We tell his mom what happened, and we try to call the police department. We get the runaround and never get any sort of conclusion to that. They beat a 15-year-old over the head with a mag light for no reason. My friend. And it wasn't even that weird that it happened. That's the scary part. Second time, when I was back in LA in high school, and I was driving through Lawndale, California. And if you don't know, Lawndale, California is kind of hood. And I was with three of my friends. We're all dressed, white t-shirts, dickies, shaved heads, looking rather cholo, because that's the group that I hung out with. But anyway, we were just driving through Lawndale. And we get pulled over for no reason at all. The only reason we got pulled over was because we had shaved heads, white t-shirts, dickies. They pull us out of the car because there had been a drive-by shooting in the area hours before. And we didn't match any of the descriptions of anybody. None of us known gang members. We were made to sit on the side of the road in handcuffs for 3 hours. When they knew all along that we had nothing to do with the shooting that just happened. They had verified our identities. They had verified if we had any affiliations with anybody. Nothing. They kept us there, would walk by us occasionally, maybe kick you in the rib, call you names, hoping that one of us would make an aggressive move so that they could get some cause to arrest us. 3 hours. 17-year-olds who had done nothing wrong other than just looking the way that they looked. And then the third time still haunts me to this day as one of the grossest displays of racism that I have ever personally dealt with and personally had to see. And shockingly, because I'm white, it ended up I'll just tell you the story. I was with my friend, high school. Same thing, same uniform, shaved head, white t-shirt, some dickies. And we went to go visit another high school because my friend, Joey, just wanted to get his shirt back from a buddy that he let borrow it. That's all. Now, we were ditching school, yeah. We were going to go back, but still, we were ditching school. So, okay, there's a reason to check out what we were doing. Because that's what a lot of people say, you know. They say that, and I don't say a lot of people. That's what people who are ignorant, and I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean ignorant of the profiling that does go on by law enforcement. They always say, well, there's got to be a reason. Well, sometimes there's not. Sometimes there is absolutely no reason to pull somebody over. Like the second story I told you, there was no reason. There was something that happened earlier in that neighborhood, but not even the car we were driving matched the description. They just saw 4 dudes in a car that they wanted to mess with, that they thought might be up to no good, and maybe they could find some cause on. So that does happen more than people think, and now they're realizing it, which is great. And now we're having a day of discussion like this, and we're actually talking about it, which is wonderful, because maybe we can finally get some change. There's been so many instances where things like this have happened and people have rallied around it, and then they go back to normal. And that's what I'm going to challenge you with today at the end of this, is I'm going to challenge you not to go back to normal, to keep fighting until we get some actual change and people actually can live their lives without having to live their lives in fear every day for just being a color or being from a neighborhood or looking a certain way. So anyway, he did have cause to pull us over in this instance. He pulled us over, asked what we were doing. We explained. My buddy is just going to go up there, grab his shirt from his friend, then we're going to go back to school. He pulls us out of the car, checks our IDs. He says, my friend on the curb. My friend, by the way, Hispanic, he's a Mexican dude. Sits him on the curb. And then he pulls me aside. Pulls me to the front of his car. Looking at my ID, this officer looks up at me. And he asks me, what are you doing here? And I said, I just told you. My friend is just here to get a shirt from one of his friends, and then we're going back to school. And then he goes, no, that's not what I mean. It says here on your license that you're Caucasian. What are you doing hanging out with this guy? I get chills when I tell the story because I can still feel the way I felt. Like my jaw dropped. I was like, what? What are you talking about? It's my friend. It's like a brother to me at the time. And he goes, you shouldn't be hanging out. And then he used a racial slur. You shouldn't be hanging out with these guys. Gives me my license back. Tells me to get back to school. So I walk back to the car, shocked, in disbelief that I had just seen an officer of the law be so blatantly racist. And then I start to get back in my car, and then my buddy starts to also get in the car, and he goes, no, not you. They ended up arresting my friend for being truant and letting me go back to school. It was heartbreaking to see that. It was heartbreaking in every instance. That one, though, hit so hard because anybody out there who argues with the whole white privilege thing, damn, we were both doing the same thing. But apparently, he's the one that gets arrested because he's Mexican and I'm a white dude and I'm allowed to go. And that happens all the time. And that is the harsh reality. And there are a lot of people who have never seen that stuff in person, or people who live in areas where that kind of stuff might not go on because you're around the same people all the time. So when you hear of these stories and when you see the things that you've seen on these cell phone videos, it might look like a myth to you. If you look at the census and you look at America, granted, censuses can be kind of skewed. But if you look at the numbers, America is 70% white and I think 16% African American. And that's just off the top of my head. I looked a little while ago and I might be off a little bit here or there, but it's basically that. That sounds like a staggering number, and it is. But there are a lot of communities, a lot of white communities especially, where it's not diverse. And so I think a lot of people in these areas are the people that want to not believe that it's that bad because they've never actually seen it. Because to them, racism is something that they read about in their history books at school, and it frankly wasn't even taught the right way. And some of the stories were downplayed, and some of the stories were never actually told. Do yourself a favor at some point today. Google the Tulsa race riots. It'll blow your mind. But they didn't teach you that in school. Because our country was designed at a time when racism was really acceptable. And thankfully, because of people finally taking notice and speaking up, thankfully, hopefully, some point at the end of all this, we can get to where it's never acceptable by anybody. And we can get to the point where we are actually just people sharing a slab of earth together, and we no longer discriminate, and we no longer profile, we no longer think it's okay to beat somebody based on the color of their skin. Hopefully we can get there. And I believe that we can. And I believe that we can with things like today and things like this day of discussion. Remember, you can join it at hashtag United for Justice or the website unitedforjustice.com. And that's really what I wanted to talk about today, was understanding. You know, because I've seen all sides of this, you know, growing up in some of the areas I grew up, I was like one of the only white dudes. And then I've grown up in areas where it was just full of, it was not very diverse, and it was just all white people. And I think that there are a lot of people out there who really don't understand how bad racism still is in our country. And I put this on Twitter, and I want to say first that I don't approve of the looting and the burning of things. I feel, I wish that things could start to get resolved with peaceful protests. I wish that could happen. And, you know, there's been some people that have taken advantage of what's going on. Some people who have their own agendas that don't have anything to do with what the protests are actually about, who just want to burn stuff, anarchists and things like that. But let's not focus on them. All right. They're not even worth it right now. They're trying to capitalize on something, and that's just as terrible as the situation that we're talking about. But I put this on Twitter a little while ago, and I said, if you can't understand being so angry that you just want to burn stuff down, that you just want to break stuff, then congratulations, you've lived a pretty nice life. And then people responded to me, of course, saying, well, if someone was going to come to my store, I'd protect it. And I said, I'm not talking about that right now. I'm not talking about the actions. I'm talking about understanding. If you can't understand why people are so angry, you'll never be able to get to the point where you can listen enough that we can change things. Everybody can understand that feeling of, even on a small level, of being so angry you just want to break something. Now multiply that by 1 billion, and you're never going to understand the voices that are out there that are so hurt, that feel so unheard, that feel so angry, that they feel like there's nothing they can do but to break stuff. Again, I'm not saying I condone that, but what I'm saying is understand the mentality, and then maybe if you can understand it, we can start to actually have a conversation, and you can hear what people are saying rather than just shutting them off. Like I said earlier, if you feel yourself getting defensive at anything I'm saying, if you feel yourself getting angry at anything I'm saying, stop and listen. Stop and dissect why you're angry. Burn that down. Break that down. Figure out what's in you that makes you upset. Just like the people that are out there that are talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, and they're upset and they're shouting all lives matter. Yes, that's the truth, but that's not the point right now. And I want to take a moment to try to get people to understand, the people that are out there that are shouting all lives matter and that are shouting back negatively at such a positive message, I want to take a moment, and I hope some of them are listening, and I hope some of those people have stayed with me, and some of those people have actually taken a second to hear what I'm saying so that they can actually reassess the way that they feel. If you're one of those people that are out there right now and you're shouting back angrily, all lives matter, I want to help you try to understand what the Black Lives Matter movement means. It doesn't mean that black lives are more important than white lives or anybody else. That's the part where people aren't listening. They're just getting defensive and they're feeling threatened. They're feeling threatened because for once, the entire country and the entire world is shouting Black Lives Matter. And if you're feeling threatened about that, that's interesting. Because not anywhere in that message does it say at any point your life doesn't matter. Never. It just says, hey, if you look at the numbers and you look at the proof that we have via cell phone, via other video, via everything, if you look at the proof, it's just like, hey, Black Lives Matter. Like, because guess what? If you're a white and you feel threatened by that verbiage and it makes you upset, well, guess what? In America, white lives have always mattered. Always. This country was founded with white lives mattering and black lives not mattering. So yes, we need a reminder that Black Lives Matter. This is the way that I can try to explain it for the people out there, because it sickens me. It sickens me and it makes me so angry that there are people out there who are not willing to just take a look at what's going on and try to understand without just lashing out and getting defensive and name calling and getting angry at a movement of people just being like, hey, stop killing us. Why would that make anybody angry? Why? Why would anybody get mad at people just raising their hand and going, yo, we need some help too. We matter as well. I equate it to this, the Save the Whales movement. When that was big, I don't know how long ago. Maybe it's still going on. Back, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. The Save the Whales movement. When people were shouting, save the whales, they weren't saying, hey, screw all the other fish in the sea. Hey, kill the tuna and keep the whales. They weren't saying that. Everybody just knew that whales were dying at a tremendous rate compared to other sea creatures. Whales were being hunted. Whales were being caught up in nets when they didn't need to be. And everybody understood that save the whales meant, hey, the whales have a problem right now. They're dying and they need help. They didn't say, screw the dolphins. Screw the sea otters. Screw whatever other sea animals are out there. They just said, hey, the whales need saving. And nobody argued with that. Everybody was on board. And everybody should be on board with Black Lives Matter, because that's all it is that when it comes to profiling and racial injustice in this country, Black, Hispanic, pretty much any minority, they have problems. And any white person out there that wants to argue with that, it's probably because either you are racist. Hello, that probably makes people angry. Either you are racist or you live in an insulated community around people who look just like you. And to you, this stuff doesn't go on. And you might actually be a little racist without even realizing it. And that is why this whole thing is important. That's why this day of discussion is important. And that's why this conversation needs to be had. So that hopefully we can get some understanding. And that people can start to hear each side of an argument and hear every part of a person's struggle. So that we can listen, we can understand, and then we can take action together. It's not about excluding anybody. It's about including everybody. That's what Black Lives Matter is about. And if you're against that, then it's time for you to reevaluate. Because we are all human beings. We all have the same functions in our body. Color of your skin or your religion or where you came from shouldn't matter. Because if the shoe was on the other foot, you'd probably be also like, hey, my life matters. If you were the one who had a problem, you'd want other people to hear your side. And people need to start listening. On the topic of understanding as well, I wanted to touch on the defund police language that's gone around. I think it's a very important discussion that needs to be had because, unfortunately, I feel like the term defund police is being taken the wrong way. I feel like they could have called it something else, something a little more palatable for people who are already ready to fight because they feel like a group of people want to have more power than them. That's not what it's about. It's all about equality right now. That's what you need to realize and understand. It's all about equality. And defund police does not mean to get rid of all law enforcement. It does not mean to disband every police department. It does not mean a lawless society. It doesn't even mean to disrespect what we have in place. What it means is reform. And yes, absolutely. There are so many things in this country that need reform, and the police department is definitely one of them. There are some jobs that you just can't have. You just can't have bad apples. That's a Chris Rock. Chris Rock made this joke a while back, and he said there's some jobs, I'm paraphrasing again because I can't remember quotes to save my life, but he said something to the effect of, there are some jobs that just can't have bad apples. You know, and being a cop is a tough job, but that's just a job. You can't have bad apples. It's like being an airline pilot and being like, yeah, United Airlines has this pilot. Once in a while he likes to crash into mountains sometimes. You can't have bad airline pilots, and you can't have bad apples as far as the police goes. You can't have people that will exert their power. You can't have people that will assault people. You can't have people walking around with guns and the right to inflict pain on people if they have nefarious reasons and if they think a certain way. I'm sorry, you can't. That's a job that needs to have only people who want to help. And I believe there are a lot. And I believe there are a lot of people who got into the police force wanting to help, wanting to do good for their community. But there's a code in the police force that makes people abandon that at some point. And that's why we need to reform the police. And that's what defund the police means. All that means is that we take some of the money that is allotted and allocated to law enforcement. Like in Minneapolis, I think they had $1.3 billion allocated for their law enforcement. And you take some of that money that's used for buying tanks, buying guns, buying riot gear, buying blah, 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 buying all this things that might not necessarily be necessary or didn't have to be necessary if we invested in other social services. You take some of that money and you put it somewhere else so that hopefully even the police's job gets easier. The authority's job gets a little easier because you've got some mental health help in place. You've got some community assistance in neighborhoods that need it. You've got after school programs. You've got things. You're investing in your community. That's all it means. Is defund police doesn't mean to get rid of the police altogether. Defund police means to take some of the money that's used for law enforcement and put that into the community so that hopefully those programs that are not funded and are severely underfunded, hopefully those can make a difference. And then some of the crime that exists will go down. And there's education, and there's things for people who deal with drug addiction. And there's so many mental health issues in this country. And that's something that we don't talk about enough. That's all that means. It doesn't mean, hey, everyone, let's just have a lawless society where people go crazy and do whatever they want. That's not what people want. I mean, I'm sure there are some people who want that. And if you do, you're in this for the wrong reasons. What we're calling for is for there to be a reevaluation and a reform of the police force. And we do need that. Because like I said a second ago, there are a lot of good cops and police who got into it for the right reasons. And if I was one of those police officers, I would be so mad. And I've seen online, some police officers saying that the media is vilifying them and the protesters are vilifying them. Yes, they are. They're not vilifying you if you're a good cop, though. They're vilifying the cops that should be vilified because because the whole reason we're talking about this is because we witnessed a murder of a man by a police officer, another murder of a man who was screaming that he couldn't breathe and a knee was on his neck for over 8 minutes while other officers just stood there and watched. So yes, those people are being vilified, and the things that have gone on in the police force are being vilified, and they should be. And if you are a good police officer, you should be incredibly angry at all of the other police officers out there who have done this type of behavior, who have abused their position, or the officers who have been implicit and allowed it to go on. You should be incredibly angry because of those bad apples. Now you're lumped in with the bunch. But you can change that. You can change that if you also start to speak up. You can change that if you start to go against the code that you have in police precincts and in police communities all over this country. There's a code, there's a brothership. And understandably, it's a tough job. And it's a job that you have a partner who has to watch your back. You have to trust each other, etc., etc., etc. But there's a code where the police don't rat on each other, where they don't step in and they don't stop things that they know they should stop for fear of action being taken against them in their precincts. And if you want to change the way that law enforcement operates in this community, then you need to get rid of that code. And the police need to start policing themselves. With whatever reform that we see when it comes to law enforcement, police need to start policing themselves. They need to be brave enough, and they need to actually be heroes. They took an oath when they got into law enforcement that says that they are going to protect the community. That's their job, to protect people, to protect and to serve. That's at least the ideology that they're supposed to have going into it. Well, guess what? If you're allowing abusive behavior to go on, then you're also part of the problem. If you got into the police department to help your community and to help people, well, by you being quiet, you're not helping at all. Not at all. You know, if you talk about the George Floyd video, You had the one officer with his knee on his neck, and you had another officer standing there, ignoring people who are asking him, hey, are you going to do anything? He's got his knee on his neck. Are you going to do anything? You going to step in? He ignored them. His decision to be quiet. Now, maybe he also wanted it to happen. But let's say he didn't. Let's say he knew it was wrong. Let's say he wanted badly to do something. His decision to ignore what was right and to ignore that a man was being murdered in front of him, all so that he didn't have to call out his boy, caused him to also be charged with murder. When could you imagine the powerful act, especially in today's society, with all of the people that we know have died at the hands of law enforcement, people of color who have been shot for no reason? How many times someone has uttered the phrase, I can't breathe, and been killed? Do you understand what a hero he could have been if he pulled that man off him? When I started my whole part of today's discussion, I talked about how sometimes you can't ignore the ugly side of humanity, and sometimes you can't just talk about the positive if you want to see change. All the research that shows what people want to listen to in media and see in media these days is positive. I know that because I tend to be a negative person, and I've heard it from a million consultants that you shouldn't look at the negative things. You should be positive all the time. Well, imagine if you would have pulled him off. Imagine the positive story we would have had. Imagine the showing of support for a community who needs a showing of support so bad from law enforcement. If he would have just done the right thing. Unfortunately, the right thing has not been done a lot. And that's why I would challenge anybody, whether you're in law enforcement or not, to speak up. One of my personal mottos is burn it down. I have it tattooed across my chest. And what does burn it down mean for me? Burn it down means for me that in order for you to make things better, sometimes personally, you have to burn yourself down and build yourself again. And we've talked a lot about people burning things down in the riots and in the protests. Well, let's take it out of the literal sense. And let's talk about burning it down. Not a building, not a car, burning down the societal norms that have been created in this country that allow racism to exist. If you're a police officer, a good police officer who wants to do right by the community and right by the people you serve, then burn down that code of being quiet. Throw a Molotov cocktail on that. And by the way, I mispronounced Molotov. It's hard for me to say. But throw a Molotov cocktail on that code and burn it down and start speaking up and calling out the people who are criminals in the police force and who should not have that job, because we don't need bad apples there. If you're in a society where you see racism every day from your peers, from your family, around the dinner table, from your grandpa who you give him a pass because he's old, burn that code down. Call them out. Tell them you won't listen to that anymore. It's time for us to burn the walls down that surround the conversation of racism in this country. It's time for us to speak up. All of the people in society who want to just live together in harmony. It's time for us to speak up and burn down all those old ideas and start telling people that you will not allow them to discriminate on someone or to act out on someone in a negative way based on the color of their skin, or where they came from, or what they believe in. Now is the time for that, and now is the time for understanding and listening and having a conversation. And thank you for letting me have my part of the discussion today. This is obviously something that I'm very passionate about. It's something that I'm glad to do, but I wish I didn't have to do. And it's something that I'm very proud of Alpha Media, who has put this together, and all of the other broadcasters and radio hosts and people that have gotten involved in this today. I'm very proud of all of us. And I'm very proud of you if you are one of the people who are standing up and fighting for justice. Join the conversation. Hashtag United for Justice. Find it online, unitedforjustice.com. Before I end my part of today's discussion, I wanted to leave you with this. It's a poem that I wrote, and it's a mixture of George Floyd's actual last words, followed by responses that I wrote to each of them. It's my face, man. Equality over race, man. I didn't do nothing serious, man. You changed the world, man. Please, peace. Please, peace. Please, I can't breathe. Please, we want peace. Please, man. We can. Please, somebody. Everybody. I can't breathe. We can't cease. I can't breathe. We want peace. Please. Peace. Man can't breathe. My face. No more deaths because of race. Just get up. Let's stand up. I can't breathe. We can't cease. Please, peace. I can't breathe. We can't cease. I will. We will. I can't move. We can together. Mama, with love. Mama, and equality. I can't. We can. My knee. We see. My nuts. You're numb. I'm through. We're through. I'm through. We're through. I'm claustrophobic. We see your struggle. My stomach hurts. We hear your pain. My neck hurts. We feel your sorrow. Everything hurts. This cannot maintain. Some water or something. Black Lives Matter. Please. Peace. Please. Peace. I can't breathe, officer. We can't be quiet anymore. Don't kill me. Black Lives Matter. They gonna kill me, man. They gonna kill no more. Come on, man. We can do better. I cannot breathe. We cannot cease. I cannot breathe. We cannot cease. They gonna kill me. They gonna kill no more. They gonna kill me. They gonna kill no more. I can't breathe. We can't cease. I can't breathe. We want peace. Please, sir. Please, no. Please, peace. Please, peace. Please, I can't breathe. Please, we want peace. Thanks again for letting me be a part of the discussion. Remember, you can join it online, hashtag United for Justice or unitedforjustice.com. And I want to encourage everybody to not stop fighting, to stay on task. Don't forget how you feel today and keep moving forward, and we can change things. I'm Jubal Fresh. Until we talk next time.